Soul Land 2 EP 74. When everyone discovered that Zhang Lexuan was Beibei's child bride, their reaction was one of shock. The new soul fighting tournament officially began. Juzi unexpectedly became Shu Tianran's empress. The 99th ranked Dragon Emperor Donghua appeared, intimidating everyone present. The story continued from the previous episode. Evil Soul Master Tanya severely injured Beibei. Zhang Lexuan's unusual concern for him afterward made everyone suspect something was happening between them. Seeing everyone's curious gazes, Beibei sighed helplessly and then revealed, "Actually, eldest senior sister is my child bride." Beibei's words stunned everyone. After all, who would have thought that Zhang Lexuan, the inner court's chief disciple, a soul duo, and a Sea God Pavilion member at 30, would be Beibei's child bride? It was simply unbelievable. Beibei explained, with a wry smile, that it was a long story beginning 20 years prior. His family line was single heir, and according to ancestral rules, they had to follow the maternal line. Under maternal grace, all of his relatives above him passed away early, leaving him an orphan. Mu'en treasured him. Zhang Lexuan, meanwhile, had been found by Shrek Academy's teachers when she was only 11 or 12 years old. Her family, nobles of the Sun Moon Empire, had been annihilated, leaving her the sole survivor. Mu Lao examined Zhang Lexuan and discovered she possessed innate full soul power, a 100-year spirit ring, and rank 20 cultivation. She begged Mu Lao for revenge. He promised to nurture her, on the condition that she protect Shrek Academy for life and become Beibei's child bride. Beibei was the last of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon bloodline. Mu Lao, fearing for the bloodline's future, and recognizing Zhang Lexuan's exceptional talent, wanted to bring them together. Driven by her desire for revenge, Zhang Lexuan swore an oath and agreed to both conditions. Later, Mu Lao avenged Zhang Lexuan. She cultivated while watching Beibei grow up. As Beibei matured, Mu Lao regretted the conditions he had set, given the 10-year age gap between them. He told Zhang Lexuan she didn't have to uphold her oath. However, she firmly stated that regardless of the future, she would remain by Beibei's side and protect Shrek. Beibei initially didn't know he had a fiancée until he became involved with Tanya, at which point Mu Lao informed him. Despite his disapproval of Tanya, Mu Lao tacitly approved of their relationship due to Shrek Academy's debt to the Tang Sect. The unfortunate consequence was that Zhang Lexuan was left in a state of living widowhood. Mu Lao urged Beibei to treat Zhang Lexuan well. Beibei recounted how he once asked Zhang Lexuan to release herself from the oath, as many talented young men in the inner court admired her. He didn't want to ruin her happiness, but Zhang Lexuan stubbornly refused to break her promise. Even now, they remained entangled by fate. Beibei looked embarrassed as he explained this. Wang Donner then asked Beibei about his feelings for Zhang Lexuan. He immediately declared that she was like a mother and sister to him. He asked everyone to find a way, without hurting her, to help her find happiness. Huo Yuhao and the others exchanged knowing glances. When it came to matters of the heart, they knew no one could truly help. The next day, Huo Yuhao received the tournament regulations. The competition was divided into preliminaries and finals. The preliminaries, an elimination round, would be held in the outskirts of Mingdu. One rule in particular caught Huo Yuhao's attention. There would be no height restrictions in either round. This surprised him, as this rule only benefited soul tool masters, who possessed flight soul tools and thrusters. Soul masters couldn't fly without reaching rank 7, and most participating soul masters only reached soul emperor level at their limit. Soul masters with flight-type martial souls were also extremely rare. The Sun Moon Empire was blatantly biased in its own favor, and the scoring system for the elimination round had also been changed. It was divided into individual elimination matches and team matches. If one side achieved a perfect sweep of 7 wins in the individual matches, the subsequent team matches were unnecessary. The individual matches were worth 7 points, while the team matches were only worth 5, making a comeback in the team matches impossible. Of course, a 1 versus 7 sweep in such a competition was nearly impossible. 167 teams would be eliminated to select the top 32. Finally, they would be grouped and compete for the championship. The day of the new soul fighting tournament arrived. At the drawing ceremony, the 167 participating teams drew lots to determine their matchups. One team would receive a bye. By the Sun Moon Empire's official decision, the Shrek team, represented by Wang Chuer, received the bye, advancing directly to the next round with the full 12 points. The Tang Sect, to which Huo Yuhao belonged, would compete in the first round. Wang Domer had given all the Tang Sect members simple disguises, making them unrecognizable as the Shrek 7 monsters who had created miracles in the previous tournament. As long as they didn't reveal their abilities. Once they released their martial souls, the disguise would be impossible to maintain. The group wore specially designed Tang Sect uniforms, white with silver threads embroidered on them, converging on the back to form the words, Tang Sect. As soon as the Tang Sect team left the hotel, they attracted attention. People mocked the bizarre team competing with a wheelchair. The team ignored these comments, knowing strength was what truly mattered. The group walked onto the wide passageway. Soon, the 167 teams, over 2,000 people, left Mingdu. The competition venue was located in Mingdu's eastern suburbs. The area outside was already packed with people. Tens of thousands of soldiers maintained order. From a distance, Huo Yuhao spotted a high platform made entirely of metal, large enough to accommodate thousands of people. The competition arena was even more magnificent, a 10-meter-high, silver-white platform with a diameter of 120 meters. Around the arena, pale yellow light barriers had been raised, soaring into the sky. These barriers were close to the competition platform, meaning the previous scenario of winning by knocking an opponent off the platform would no longer occur. Opponents had to be completely defeated, making the battles more brutal and unpredictable. After registering, the Tang Sect was led to a remote bench area. Famous academies and sects were assigned shaded pavilions. Facing such unfair treatment in the resting area, everyone's expressions soured. Huo Yuhao sensed a presence as a very mysterious team walked in. At the forefront was Tiger Dulo, Zhang Peng, followed by a group in black uniforms concealing their appearances. Behind Zhang Peng was a well-built woman. Huo Yuhao was surprised to find his spiritual power couldn't penetrate within a foot of her. This woman's strange ability gave him a sense of familiarity. Behind this woman was Tang Ya. Although she wore a veil, she couldn't escape Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection. He thought to himself, it really is them, the Holy Spirit cult has actually come to participate. Huo Yuhao then saw many familiar faces, Princess Juju's Star Luo team, Mu Shui and Wei Na's sect representative team. Then, a dragon carriage, escorted by a 500-man Royal Soul Engineer Legion, arrived below the main platform. With a clang, rank 7 soul cannons were aimed outward. Escorted by the Soul Engineer Legion, a handsome young man in a wheelchair was pushed out. Behind him was Juzi in formal attire. Huo Yuhao stared at them. Xu Tianran's arrival in a dragon carriage made his intentions clear. Upon seeing Juzi, Huo Yuhao noted a certain majesty in her eyes, like a noble queen. Beside her stood Jing Hongchen, the head of the Mingde Hall. Suddenly, all the officials knelt and shouted, "We pay our respects to the regent. We pay our respects to the regent's wife." Huo Yuhao's breath caught in his throat. Juzi, for revenge, had married the crown prince and become his empress. The belligerent Xu Tianran, coupled with the vengeful Juzi, made Huo Yuhao realize war was truly imminent. Silence. A deep voice suddenly boomed. A terrifying pressure instantly spread throughout the entire venue. Everyone felt their vision darken and their breathing quicken. Hearing this voice, Huo Yuhao's expression changed drastically. He whispered, "Dark Holy Dragon, Dragon Emperor Dulo, Long Xiaoyao." He was not only present but had personally come to bolster the Sun Moon Empire's prestige. At this moment, Huo Yuhao was completely certain that the Sun Moon Empire and the Holy Spirit cult were allied. Juzi's pleasant voice was then broadcast through the loudspeaker. "Guests from afar, welcome. On behalf of His Highness the Regent, I declare the Continent Advanced Soul Master Elite Tournament open." The citizens of the Sun Moon Empire collectively knelt, paying their respects to Xu Tianran. Juzi returned to Xu Tianran's side and sat down. They held hands and smiled at each other. Xu Tianran calmly told everyone to take their seats. A pale-faced, middle-aged man in a black robe sat down beside him. Jing Hongchen was only worthy of sitting on Juzi's other side. After the brief opening ceremony, the first match of the preliminary elimination round began, the Sun Moon team versus the Dragon-slaying sect. The new soul fighting tournament began. The first battle was between the Sun Moon Royal Soul Engineering Academy and the Dragon-slaying sect. Meng Hongchen was the first to enter the arena for the Sun Moon team. The Dragon-slaying sect sent out a vigorous young man. After the match began, Meng Hongchen walked forward casually. 6 soul rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple and 2 black, rose slowly. Several rounds later, the young man from the Dragon-slaying sect fell. After 5 years, Meng Hongchen's bright phoenix ice toad poison had become even more potent. Moreover, with a 6-ring advantage over her 5-ring opponent, she easily crushed him. Wang Donger whispered to Huo Yuhao, "Meng Hongchen's abilities have improved considerably. The The siblings' soul power is at least above rank 65. The match continued. Soon, Meng Hongchen, relying on her poison abilities, achieved 6 consecutive victories. To avoid injury to the dragon-slaying sect's captain, she voluntarily forfeited when he entered the arena. She ultimately failed to defeat all 7 opponents. Unsurprisingly, the Sun Moon team won the individual elimination round, completely eliminating their opponents. After watching this match, the Tang Sect members were thoughtful. Shu Sanqi asked Huo Yuhao in a low voice, if our Tang Sect were to face the Sun Moon team, who would be the best match for Meng Hongchen? Huo Yuhao chuckled and replied, that would be me, of course. Everyone knew Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice wasn't afraid of poison, so naturally, there was nothing to worry about. Suddenly, a cold voice said, if there's a chance, I'd like to try. It was Jianqi, Ji Juechen speaking. His attitude was serious, his eyes burning with passion. Meng Hongchen's strength made him want to face her in combat. The following matches were exciting. Because there were no second chances in the elimination round, each team gave it their all. Huo Yuhao soon saw another familiar face enter the arena. Princess Wei Na of the Heaven Do Empire and Mu Shui, both members of the Snow Demon Sect. After Mu Shui took action, the Snow Demon Sect successfully advanced. On the first day, the fierce competition created a tense atmosphere. Many teams advanced, but many also suffered casualties. The eliminated teams left silently. The Tang Sect's match would take place on the second day. After the Tang Sect returned to the hotel, Zhang Lexuan sought out Huo Yuhao. She told him the Body Sect was also participating. Huo Yuhao was surprised, as the Body Sect's previous raid on the Mingde Hall had resulted in heavy losses for them. During that raid, he had also taken the opportunity to seize the Snow Empress and the human-shaped soul tool. He hadn't expected the Body Sect to dare participate. Zhang Lexuan continued, the Body Sect's higher-ups have also secretly infiltrated Mingdu, perhaps to protect their disciples, or perhaps they have other motives. She warned Huo Yuhao to avoid provoking the Body Sect members. Huo Yuhao smiled and said, I understand the principle of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. At the same time, Zhang Lexuan said, Shrek also has strong individuals arriving, telling Huo Yuhao he didn't need to hold back in his usual actions or during the competition. Huo Yuhao's eyes lit up, calling it good news. The night passed uneventfully. The next day arrived. After another round of intense competition, the referee announced, the next match, Tang Sect versus Earth Dragon Sect. Both sides entered the waiting area. The first participating members were called. The Tang Sect members started moving. Wang Donger pushed Huo Yuhao's wheelchair towards the waiting area. On the main platform, Xu Tianran's eyes widened. He said, why is there someone in a wheelchair? He himself used a wheelchair. Seeing another wheelchair user about to compete naturally drew his attention. Juzi followed Xu Tianran's gaze but could only see the person's profile. Yet, her heart tightened for some reason. Wang Donger escorted Huo Yuhao onto the field. The entire venue erupted in an uproar. Even the referee was dumbfounded. He asked in confusion, Tang Sect team, what is the meaning of this? Are you sending this disabled person onto the field? Wang Donger immediately retorted, who says he's disabled? She hated people calling Huo Yuhao disabled. The referee's face darkened, but he didn't get angry. He asked if the Tang Sect was indeed sending the person in the wheelchair onto the field. Huo Yuhao calmly replied, that's right. Huo Yuhao calmly stated, I'm the one competing. The young man from the Earth Dragon Sect was stunned. Huo Yuhao smiled and pushed his wheelchair with one arm, wheeling towards his side of the arena. The young man suddenly shouted, aren't you even going to announce your name? Huo Yuhao calmly stated his name. The young man nodded and said, I'm Xu Shenshu. Remember who defeated you. He then stomped his foot and appeared several meters away. Huo Yuhao continued pushing his wheelchair unhurriedly, thinking to himself, this person really lacks competition experience. Xu Shenshu's actions clearly revealed he was an assault-type soul master. On the main platform, Su Tianran waved his hand and ordered someone to investigate Huo Yuhao's background. Perhaps out of sympathy, Su Tianran then told the referee to ensure Huo Yuhao's safety, regardless of the match's outcome. He didn't notice Juzi looking dazed, tears welling up in her eyes. On the competition field, the referee announced the start of the match. Xu Shenshu shot towards Huo Yuhao like a cannonball. Mid-air, 5 soul rings, 2 yellow and 3 purple, rose around him. He quickly released his martial soul. The soul masters of the Earth Dragon Sect all had various Earth Dragon-type soul beasts as their martial souls. Xu Shenshu's was the saber-toothed Earth Dragon, a purely power-type soul beast with both offensive and defensive capabilities. As he charged forward, his first soul ring lit up, and a thick layer of keratin covered his body. In a few steps, he was within 20 meters of Huo Yuhao. Watching this, the audience wondered, is that necessary against a disabled person? Seeing his opponent charging, Huo Yuhao naturally wouldn't just wait. A snow-white light flickered on his body. The petite figure of the snow girl leaped out from his forehead. About 3 feet tall, looking about 2 years old, she was adorned with jade bracelets and wore a small belly band. Shu Shenshu, about to pounce, looked at the adorable little girl, dumbfounded. What's going on? He wondered. He hurriedly changed direction. He was there to compete, not to kill, and couldn't bring himself to attack such a cute little person. The little snow girl said in a sweet childish voice, "Uncle." Hearing this, Shu Shenshu's resolve melted away. He subconsciously responded, "Huh?" Suddenly, Shu Shenshu saw her tiny white hand pointing at him. He then felt a wave of extreme cold wash over him, turning him into an ice sculpture that crashed to the ground. After releasing her soul skill, the little snow girl happily flew back to Huo Yuhao, sat on his shoulder, and cheerfully shouted, "Daddy." Huo Yuhao's heart trembled. He remembered the Snow Empress's warning after regaining consciousness. However, he absolutely adored this little snow girl. The entire audience was silent. Even the Tang Sect members hadn't expected Huo Yuhao to summon the Snow Empress soul spirit in the first match. The other members of the Earth Dragon Sect were also stunned. This outcome was beyond their expectations. Looking at the snow girl, they were filled with questions, speculating about what this little person actually was. They concluded that the snow girl was Huo Yuhao's martial soul. After the referee checked, the snow girl thawed Shu Shenshu. He walked off the stage dejectedly. As he passed by Huo Yuhao, he angrily said, "You're too despicable. How can you bring a child to the competition? Aren't you afraid of hurting her?" Huo Yuhao helplessly thanked him and said that Shu Shenshu was a good person. The second member of the Earth Dragon Sect, Feng Jue, entered the arena. His martial soul was the Swift Dragon, granting him incredible speed. The Earth Dragon Sect believed the little girl was too cute to attack, but Huo Yuhao in his wheelchair was a different story. As long as they restrained him, the match was over. Therefore, Feng Jue was sent onto the field. Feng Jue, surrounded by yellow soul rings, stared intently at the little snow girl. He dashed forward, trying to bypass her and go straight for Huo Yuhao. Unexpectedly, a wall of ice suddenly appeared in front of him. Startled, Feng Jue curled his body and prepared to smash through it. However, the meter-thick wall, formed from ultimate ice, had a hardness comparable to steel. In the next instant, he was firmly embedded in the ice wall. The little snow girl giggled and fired a beam of light, once again turning him into an ice sculpture. The Earth Dragon Sect members were furious. A disabled person had defeated 2 of them in a row. Their third member charged directly at the little snow girl, but was also quickly defeated. The little snow girl waved her hands, creating a white ice ring. A thick ice pillar erupted from within the ring. The pillar exploded, sending countless ice shards flying, covering the opponent's body. When the explosion subsided, he was an ice sculpture. Some faces were grim, others amazed. They thought, no wonder he dared to compete in a wheelchair. So Huo Yuhao has such a powerful companion. The remaining 4 members of the Earth Dragon Sect could no longer sit still. Their only female soul master, Nan Chuchu, stepped onto the arena. She proactively greeted him. "Hello, I'm Nan Chuchu. I know that she must be your martial soul ability, so I won't show any mercy." She nodded at Huo Yuhao and walked to the other side. Shu Tianran, watching with great interest from the main platform, suddenly asked Juzi, "That female soul master from the Earth Dragon Sect, is she their captain?" Juzi respectfully replied, "Her name is Nan Chu. She's the strongest member of the Earth Dragon Sect team." Shu Tianran then asked about the outcome of the match. Juzi shook her head, indicating she couldn't predict it. Shu Tianran said, "You and Huo Yuhao share the same teacher. Don't you understand his strength?" Juzi was shocked by these words, knowing Shu Tianran was deliberately probing her relationship with Huo Yuhao. She replied, "I've only known Huo Yuhao for less than half a month. My understanding of him is limited. Therefore, I wouldn't dare to rashly judge the outcome." Hearing this, Shu Tianran smiled with satisfaction and said, "Then let's wait and see." Suddenly Jing Hongchen, sitting beside them, said, "Your Highness, this child cannot be allowed to live." Hearing this, Shu Tianran was surprised. Why would an insignificant person pique Jing Hongchen's interest so much? Jing Hongchen explained, "Huo Yuhao has caused me a lot of trouble. He even managed to escape Long Xiaoyao's ambush last time. Huo Yuhao is not only exceptionally talented, but he also knows how to seize opportunities. His wisdom is remarkable." After hearing about Huo Yuhao's deeds, Shu Tianran was greatly surprised. The person in black sitting on Shu Tianran's other side said, "So it was this boy who made a bet with Uncle Long." Their voice was strange and androgynous. Su Chanran asked, "Imperial tutor, you also know this child?" Clearly, this person in black held a much higher status than Jing Hongchen. On the competition field, Huo Yuhao was still unaware he had caught the attention of the Sun Moon Empire's higher-ups. His current priority was winning the fourth match. As the referee shouted, "Begin!" Nan Chuchu instantly released her martial soul and revealed 5 soul rings. A diamond-shaped pink crystal was embedded in her forehead. Pink, glistening scales covered her entire right arm. Her first soul ring lit up. A pink beam of light shot towards Huo Yuhao. To experience the power of her martial soul, Huo Yuhao didn't let the little snow girl intercept it. He extended his right hand, using the Ice Emperor's claw to grasp at the incoming pink beam. The moment the two made contact, Huo Yuhao's expression changed drastically. He was utterly shocked. An attack traveling 100 meters shouldn't be too powerful, but this pink beam was rapidly melting the ice crystals in his palm. This was ultimate ice. In terms of elemental advantages, aside from ultimate fire, Huo Yuhao had yet to encounter a worthy opponent. Clearly, Nanqiqu's ability wasn't ultimate fire. Instead, it possessed the ability to nullify all attributes, an annihilation ability. Upon hitting its target, it decomposed attributes, thus achieving its destructive effect. Nanqiqu's annihilation attribute was just as rare as Huo Yuhao's spiritual attribute. Huo Yuhao then learned her martial soul was the Rouge Dragon, a sub-dragon species. In addition to its annihilation attribute, it could also perform ranged attacks. Nanqiqu sneered at Huo Yuhao, who hadn't used any abilities so far, not even releasing his soul rings. Only the snow girl had been fighting. This led her to mistakenly believe Huo Yuhao was a soul master with a summoning-type martial soul, just one with an incredibly powerful summoned creature. Nanqiqu's objective was simple: use her annihilation attribute to deplete Huo Yuhao's soul power and gain the upper hand. After the first annihilation attack, the second one aimed directly at Shui Nu. Unexpectedly, the little snow girl twisted her body and dodged the attack, even making a face at Nanqiqu. Nanqiqu was slightly stunned. She thought to herself that, while defending against the attack, Huo Yuhao could actually still focus on controlling his summoned being to dodge. How could she know that Shui Nu was an unprecedented soul spirit, with her own life and thoughts? After blocking the attack, Huo Yuhao pushed his wheelchair slowly towards his opponent. Simultaneously, his mental confusion dazed Nanqiqu, distorting her vision, making her see double, and causing her attacks to go astray. Huo Yuhao's mental interference had taken effect. However, as captain, Nanqiqu was naturally skilled. After a brief moment of disorientation, he launched another attack. His third soul skill, Annihilation Chain Leopard, was unleashed. Once hit, the opponent's soul power would be doubly depleted. Just then, Shui Nu rushed out. The Ice Empress sword turned into a shocking rainbow, splitting the Annihilation Light Cluster in two with one slash. Nanqiqu was startled. This little girl's fighting power was formidable. With a thought, he transformed into a pink shadow and charged straight at Huo Yuhao. Seeing him rushing towards her, Shui Nu raised her hand, and a ring of ice appeared in Nanqiqu's path. However, he zigzagged, barely avoiding the ice ring and continuing his charge. Shui Nu cried out anxiously, and another beam of light shot towards him. This time, Nanqiqu didn't dodge. A pink light emanated from his body. His second soul skill, Body Protection, activated, absorbing Shui Nu's attack. Simultaneously, his fourth soul ring flashed, and a giant dragon claw reached for Shui Nu. Huo Yuhao and Shui Nu were one in mind and spirit. Shui Nu's pretty face turned icy cold, and with a delicate chirp, she struck out with her right palm. It was the Ice Empress's palm, great cold without blood. After the claw and palm collided, the pink giant hand shattered into countless ice-blue light spots and dissipated. Nanqiqu stared blankly. He couldn't believe his attack had been broken by a summoned creature. The strongest aspect of the Annihilation Hand was that it specifically countered summoned creatures and could absorb their consumed soul power. But he hadn't felt any absorption. After unleashing this attack, Shui Nu returned to Huo Yuhao's forehead. He looked at Nanqiqu and said, "A very strong Annihilation Hand." Nanqiqu coldly replied, "Shui Nu is very strong. She's the strongest summoned creature I've ever seen. Without Shui Nu, Huo Yuhao should admit defeat." Hearing this, a thought struck Huo Yuhao. He gritted his teeth and said, "The match isn't over yet. Your attribute just happens to counter me, but I will defeat you." Nanqiqu said with a cruel, disdainful smile, "Oh really? I'd like to see how you'll defeat me." Huo Yuhao looked panicked and said he still had a trump card. Seeing Huo Yuhao's flustered and immobile state, Nanqiqu laughed heartily. He found mentally tormenting his opponent exhilarating. He then suggested that if Huo Yuhao lost, he should join their Earth Dragon Sect. He had his eye on Huo Yuhao's shui nu. Huo Yuhao angrily retorted, "Impossible." He asked if Nanchuchu would join the Tang Sect if he lost. Nanchuchu replied that if Huo Yuhao won, it would mean the Tang Sect was truly powerful and joining them wouldn't be a problem. The area outside was already packed with people. Tens of thousands of soldiers maintained order. From a distance, Huo Yuhao spotted a high platform made entirely of metal, large enough to accommodate thousands of people. The competition arena was even more magnificent, a 10-meter-high, silver-white platform with a diameter of 120 meters. Around the arena, pale yellow light barriers had been raised, soaring into the sky. These barriers were close to the competition platform, meaning the previous scenario of winning by knocking an opponent off the platform would no longer occur. Opponents had to be completely defeated, making the battles more brutal and unpredictable. After registering, the Tang Sect was led to a remote bench area. Famous academies and sects were assigned shaded pavilions. Facing such unfair treatment in the resting area, everyone's expressions soured. Huo Yuhao sensed a presence as a very mysterious team walked in. At the forefront was Tiger Dulo, Zhang Peng, followed by a group in black uniforms concealing their appearances. Behind Zhang Peng was a well-built woman. Huo Yuhao was surprised to find his spiritual power couldn't penetrate within a foot of her. This woman's strange ability gave him a sense of familiarity. Behind this woman was Tang Ya. Although she wore a veil, she couldn't escape Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection. He thought to himself, "It really is them, the Holy Spirit cult has actually come to participate." Huo Yuhao then saw many familiar faces: Princess Juju's Star Luo team, Mu Shui and Wei Na's sect representative team. Then, a dragon carriage, escorted by a 500-man Royal Soul Engineer Legion, arrived below the main platform. With a clang, rank 7 soul cannons were aimed outward. Escorted by the Soul Engineer Legion, a handsome young man in a wheelchair was pushed out. Behind him was Juzi in formal attire. Huo Yuhao stared at them. Xu Tianran's arrival in a dragon carriage made his intentions clear. Upon seeing Juzi, Huo Yuhao noted a certain majesty in her eyes, like a noble queen. Beside her stood Jing Hongchen, the head of the Mingde Hall. Suddenly, all the officials knelt and shouted, "We pay our respects to the regent. We pay our respects to the regent's wife." Huo Yuhao's breath caught in his throat. Juzi, for revenge, had married the crown prince and become his empress. The belligerent Xu Tianran, coupled with the vengeful Juzi, made Huo Yuhao realize war was truly imminent. Silence. A deep voice suddenly boomed. A terrifying pressure instantly spread throughout the entire venue. Everyone felt their vision darken and their breathing quicken. Hearing this voice, Huo Yuhao's expression changed drastically. He whispered, "Dark Holy Dragon, Dragon Emperor Dulo, Long Xiaoyao." He was not only present but had personally come to bolster the Sun Moon Empire's prestige. At this moment, Huo Yuhao was completely certain that the Sun Moon Empire and the Holy Spirit cult were allied. Juzi's pleasant, Holy Spirit sect, Holy Spirit cult. It really is them. They really entered the competition. The next episode would cover Huo Yuhao suspecting Ma Xiaotao was in the Holy Spirit cult, and Nanchuchu mistakenly believing Huo Yuhao and Wang Donger were a couple.